Wi-Fi problems at the in-laws. We're here now.
Marty had to go yank iPads away from his children so that we had enough internet to stream this episode.
No, my children were not on their iPad, but there were iPads connected to the internet that I had to take off the Wi-Fi, then find the right network to join. I'm tired.
Well, we made it happen. Week in, week out, we made it happen.
Nothing like a 10-day trip home where your kids get sick on day 5.
Yeah, and you have to rip 2 RHRs in the process too.
Yeah. Did not sleep last night. The youngest was up all night. And I had toddler duty last night. But we're here now. How's your week?
It was good. Family's important. It's good to spend time with family as much of pain that traveling it can be, especially with little ones. My child also got sick, so that was tough. I think it just comes with the territory, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's weird. Like nothing crazy. It's just like an on again, off again fever, low grade fever. It's keeping them fussy enough not to sleep.
Dude, my Stockholm syndrome of New York has just completely worn off at this point. If I walk around that city, I'm just like, I can't believe I ever did it. Makes no sense to me anymore.
I got a bit nostalgic last week when I was there. But yeah, I don't think I could live there anymore.
I'm like,
oh no.
The moment that your internet is fine, his goes out.
Oh, that's what it is? I thought it was mine. Wow.
No, it's him.
Thought the Wi-Fi was bad at my in-laws. Seems like Bitcoin Park can't figure it out either. I just heard my wife walk in too. I got to tell her to not go on the Wi-Fi. But freaks, yeah.
Don't pick up the phone. We're doing RHR.
Literally. I can hear my oldest crying too. This is it's fun. Holidays. What the fuck? I think the outlets went out down here too. Chaotic beginning to an RHR. Kids haven't slept in 2 days. I love coming home for the holidays, but it is exhausting. Trying to juggle one family to the other, see as many people as possible. We got Matt back. It was your Wi-Fi.
It was. I mean, this time that wasn't causing the issues pre-show, but of course, as soon as we went live, the park's whole internet went out.
Yeah, I think I have 2 space heaters on, or had 2 space heaters on right next to me. I think it just blew the circuit.
But anyway, Christmas is special. It's a special holiday. And it's really good to be around family, and yeah, especially the oldest members of our family and the youngest members of our family. You know, I was watching Netflix came out with that World War II documentary. Is that on your radar? It's all original footage, colorized.
I feel like there's 15 of them. I have watched one of those colorized.
No, there's this one's. And I was like a History Channel addict when I was growing up, when History Channel was good and was just like all World War II shit. It's pretty high quality. I'm like halfway through it. I'm like in like 1942 or something. No spoilers, freaks. I don't want any spoilers. But it's pretty high quality. It's, you know, got a little bit of propaganda in it, as does every American produced World War II piece, but it's light touch. It's light touch. They actually have footage from, you know, the Germans and the Japanese and the Russians as well, which is really kind of crazy that, you know, people had like these bulky ass cameras and they're like fighting for their lives. They're also like filming from inside of a tank, which is just like crazy that someone did that, and it's crazy that we have the footage. But the reason I bring it up is because I was watching with my grandmother, who's over 90 years old, and she was like 10 years old at the time. And it's just absolutely crazy how much can change in a lifetime. I feel like we really discount that, and it's important to spend as much quality time with the elder generation before their time expires.
No, that's it's actually funny you bring that up because my in-laws went to France recently, and they went to Normandy, and they went to one of like the chateaus that was occupied by the Nazis for like 5 or 6 years, and the tour guide was like the grandson of the original owner of the chateau, and he was just taking them to all the spots where like people would go and like watch the war happen, like people fighting on the beaches. They had like a spectator section for the war, which is pretty crazy to think about.
You know where they did a really good job? The New Orleans World War II Museum is really good.
I haven't been to
Anyone
that
goes to New Orleans,
Haven't been to that one yet.
quite good. But yeah, a lot can be learned from our history, but it's important to keep family close, and I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful right now.
Yeah, same. It was fun. First Christmas without my dad. Obviously, it was an emotional one, but my grandmother, his mother, has moved in with my mom. She's on her older age, and she's actually not that old. She's in her early 70s, but she acts like she's 90. And she came to dinner with us and my mom's sister's house, my aunt's house. And it was like a really good time. My one cousin's husband is a producer at the MLB Network and NHL Network. He makes these like summer highlight reels of just like pictures of the kids running on the beach. And so we watched that this year's version after dinner. It was funny seeing her in the chair watching that, just getting a lot of joy. It's small moments like that gathered around the TV with your kids.
Agreed.
We don't have a list this week, freaks.
No list. Not that much has happened this week. Most shows I think would just take off for the holidays. We're crazy people and we love you, so we don't do that. Which is why we have 2 shows in the last week, if you include this one. People are like, Matt, why aren't you going on this Christmas show or this Christmas show or whatever? It's like, we have our own. We do this every week. It takes its toll. People don't realize it takes its toll. Sitting in front of a camera and broadcasting to the world every week, but we do it.
We find something to talk about every week, and I know
we do it not because we do it not because it was hard, but because we thought it was easy, but it was hard. What is that? That's the saying, whatever that fucking saying is.
I don't know what saying you're referencing, but it sounds good to me. Thought it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah,
it's hard, but there is something to talk about all week, and maybe we don't need a list because we did sort of tease this last week and we haven't talked about it since. But should we do a year in review? Just
I got lost, but that's the plan, right? Year in review, year forward, and hopefully you'll be a little bit more deliberate about your predictions than a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Let's keep them Bitcoin focused.
Okay. All right. Before we do a year in review, let's get a snapshot of what's going on right now on the Bitcoin network with the Clark's dashboard. Current price of Bitcoin is 42,580 cuck-bucks. One cuck-buck's going to get you 2,349 sats. Still below $1 trillion market cap, sitting at 833.6 billion. We are at block height 823,306. We had an upwards difficulty of adjustment of 7% between last week's episode and this episode. The next adjustment's in 1,238 blocks, which is estimated to be on January 5th, which is next Friday. And as of right now, that's looking like a downward adjustment of 2.8%. There are currently 138,079 transactions in Clark's teeny weeny mempool. And if we go over to mempool.space, referencing the right metric this time, there's 382,075 transactions in mempool's mempool. There are currently 9,958.59 Bitcoin unspent capacity in Samurai's Whirlpool. That is getting close to $500 million in unspent value, currently sitting at 423.7 million bucks in unspent value. That's the state of the network. We are at block height 823,306. Where do we start? Where do we start this year? Bitcoin block height on January 1, 2023. I don't know how to find that. I don't know.
Where were you typing it, Marty?
Just Google. See if Glassnode has it.
Freaks, in the live chat, just tell us the block height from the beginning of the year. Marty, continue.
I'm going to find it.
Are you kidding me?
We were at block height. We were around block height 770,000. So that computes about 50,000, 60,000 blocks in a year, between 50 and 60,000 blocks in a year, which lines up with the halving cycle. So that's where we were. What a year. Bitcoin's up. We got a Bitbo.
Where'd you end up finding it?
Glassnode.
Marty, before we get started, should we? Conclusion of a long bet has happened.
Yeah, you won.
Okay, now we can move on. Thank you.
There's nothing else to say about that.
Glad we got that sorted. Happy New Year, freaks. Stay humble, stack sats. It's been a great rip. Peace.
Charlie Spirit will be coming every day. I just took a short hiatus during this holiday break. I'll be back stronger than ever in
the bend.
Yeah,
you're just taking a slight holiday break, right, to get affairs in order.
Yeah, trying to figure out the strategy for the website, other shit.
How many bends have you done?
Close to 2,500, I think.
That's insane. By the way,
0 times 3, yeah. Probably 2,200, 2,100.
The freaks in the live Nostr chat, which by the way is rhr.tv/stream. Thank you to all the freaks who continue to zap us and support us with Bitcoin donations through that stream and through Podcasting 2.0. We appreciate you. Someone commented in here the quote, but it's not the quote I was talking about. The original JFK quote was, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they're easy, but because they are hard. But there's a derivation quote of that, which is what I was trying to quote, but I failed.
Hey, you tried. That's all we can ask for is a solid effort there. All right, before I got sidetracked, year in review. Bitcoin price, according to Bitbo, I think 157%.
What about transaction volume? That's up a lot. I don't know how you're going to find that.
Yeah, why are you asking me stats like I'm not going to be able to pull up on my go?
Mempools are way busier than they were this time last year. There's a stat.
That's certain.
What was the price January 1 of last year? Of this year?
It was $16,677.87.
Yeah, here's the quote. Is Logan, you found it? Thank you. We do this not because it is easy, but because we thought it would be easy. There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
I came close.
Yeah.
So the price is up like almost 3x, a little bit less, 2.5. Not too shabby.
No, 2.5. Ending the year at around a humble 42 $2,500. I'll take that.
It's cool with me.
So how do you want to start this year in review?
Wait. Hash rate. What was the hash rate at the beginning of the year? Because we made a hash rate prediction of last show. The best way to do this would really have been to listen to last year's, but I didn't.
No. Hash rate was 272 exahash. We're currently at 553, so more than doubled in a year.
I think, if I recall correctly, we had the over-under line at 500.
Yeah, we did.
And I think we were both super bullish on it, and then like a couple weeks later, we were like tempered our bullishness, and so we lose credit for that.
Yeah.
But that's insane. The hash rate has nearly doubled.
Yeah. Parker Lewis, listening live in Austin, Texas, he found the exact block height at the beginning of the year using time chain calendar. It was 769,828. Nice. Nice block height there. That's 12 months ago, so that was like December 28th. So, yeah, 270,000 some odd is where we were Jan 1.
TikTok next block.
TikTok next block. So what happened this year? We had FTX blow up at the end of 2022, rolling into 2023.
Wait. FTX, Celsius, BlockFi, Barry Silbert.
Yeah, Celsius, BlockFi were like in the summer. Very low later. Silvergate.
Wait. What summer?
Summer 22.
Oh, yeah. So, right, FTX didn't blow up this year. That was last year.
Yeah.
So, wrong year in review. Got it.
I'm trying to say, like, what was happening this time last year. January was a bit of a quiet month. Price of recovering, licking our wounds. Slowly rising in price. And then February, I think, is when things kicked off. And I think a big theme of this year that seems like quite a while ago at this point is the banking crisis. So we mentioned Silvergate. I think they were one of the first to fall. And to note there, they gave all their depositors their money and just threw in the towel and said, hey, we're closing up shop. It's not worth it. Then we had Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and First Republic in short order towards the end of February, early March. I think this was a pretty massive theme juxtaposed to Bitcoin and what it's trying to achieve, because it really drove home the risk that comes with trusted third parties, particularly with your money. So each bank going down created this sort of reminder that the banks don't have your money. They're structurally insolvent. And the government will pick and choose who they save and who they don't, and who they take behind the wood chipper or the woodshed and shoot in the head. That was Signature Bank, who got taken out on a Sunday night and arguably probably could have remained solvent.
And then they sold Signature Bank in like a behind room deal, and then excluded the Bitcoin and crypto portion of their banking services. That wasn't allowed to be sold.
Yeah.
I mean, we had, how many episodes, Logan, did we have this year that were called "The Bank Runs Will Continue"? I mean, I see
3
Charlie
minimum.
Spears. Exactly. I see Charlie Spears in the comments saying, everyone just brain hold the banking crisis. Yes, people have a tendency to do that, but also the banking crisis hasn't finished yet. They preemptively bailed out all the rest of the banking system with their BTFP program. All these banks are still insolvent, and it's going to take a little bit for the cracks behind the surface to become apparent to people. I think, you know, I would be very surprised if we've seen the end of the bank runs. I think they accelerate from here. It should be interesting. We did mention Barry. I just want to real quick. I did look up because Barry just got forced out of the board of Grayscale. So I did rerun the numbers, and I believe today is 411 days since Barry lost billions of dollars of customer money, and he still has not paid them back. So there's we had a full year of Barry shirking his responsibilities. Was 23.
Yeah. I mean, I guess expanding on that little news item that you just dropped, that did happen this week. Probably one of the biggest headlines of this week is Barry did have to step down from the board. I think it's consensus is that was one of the stipulations of Grayscale potentially transitioning GBTC to an ETF. I was like, all right, you can't have this guy on the board anymore.
They probably said something along the lines of, probably not going to get an ETF if you have a felon on your board. Something like that.
Yeah. They probably said it with much more legalese around it, but yeah, that was the message. But going back, you mentioned the BTFP program. That's a pretty massive facility. And they said at the time that it would be a 1-year program. And so we'll find out in early March, mid-March of this year, if that remains true or if they extend that. I saw some rumors going around earlier this week that there's like a BTFP arbitrage play where people are going and taking advantage of BTFP and then taking some of the liquid reserves and diving into some yield-bearing facility that the Fed has elsewhere within their architecture, and the Fed's just being.
I mean, that's the least surprising thing ever, right?
Yeah. And so,
of course, they're doing that.
Yeah. And so that's March, April, and again, I think we leaned into this pretty hard on the show and then behind the scenes at 1031 talking to portfolio companies. And that banking, I mean, the banking crisis was big for Bitcoin in two reasons. Number one, again, it highlighted the trusted third party risks that exist, particularly in the banking sector. But then Bitcoin companies, a lot of the banks that wound up getting taken under were Bitcoin industry banking partners. And so there was a pretty stressful couple months span there where a lot of the companies in the space were scrambling to lock down bank accounts.
Specifically Signature, Silvergate, SVB. Like even the smart Bitcoin companies hedged themselves with having relationships with all three, which didn't really help in this situation. But yeah, I mean, it was just absolutely crazy to live through. And I would just say once again, I don't think we're through that mess. I think the bank runs will continue. They're all insolvent by design, and they're particularly insolvent right now because of the way rates went up so quickly. I mean, going back, like there were so many calls that week and in-person conversations about strategies and trying not to lose money and money moving around to different bank accounts. The best were when you call up a founder and be like, how much runway do you have? Okay, you have this many months. Okay, where do you have it? And it's like, it's all in Bitcoin. It's like, awesome, bye, you're good. Like, and I think it's a massive wake up call for people, right? Because for the longest time, there's been a obviously a desire by a lot of Bitcoiners to have a portion of their company treasury in Bitcoin, so they have upside on that. They have Bitcoin price exposure. Obviously, most Bitcoin, it's pretty impossible to be a successful Bitcoin founder and not be bullish on the underlying asset. And then that kind of morphed into Michael Saylor's thesis of the melting ice cube, where every company, regardless if you're a Bitcoin company yet, should have some Bitcoin exposure so that your cash on hand doesn't get completely devalued over time with inflation. But I think this highlights a new narrative, which is incredibly strong, which is this idea that if you don't have a portion of your company's assets in Bitcoin, you might not be able to make payroll next week if the banks fail. And as a result, it's prudent to have at least a portion of your runway in Bitcoin so that you don't have to trust a third party with running your business. And I would just reiterate here on top of that point, the way I kind of look at all of these things is whether you're a humble individual, whether you're a company, whether you're a government, the goal here is to accumulate as many sats as possible, as quickly and as responsibly as possible, so you don't get wrecked along the way, because the Bitcoin purchasing power will increase over time with adoption. That is the expectation. So cash flow today, savings today can be worth 10x the amount of savings you can accrue in 10 years. Probably way more than that. That was probably a really bearish example, but that was something that became very apparent to me this year, which is the responsible move. It's not a degen move. The responsible move is to have a decent sized portion of your company's treasury in Bitcoin, so you can always keep the lights on regardless of what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, expand on that further, like make sure your treasury balance is held the correct way, whether that's using a multi-sig vault with Unchained, where a couple of executives hold some keys in that quorum, or maybe an executive and a board member hold keys in that quorum, or maybe an executive and a legal advisor hold keys in that quorum. Maybe you want to roll your own multi-sig, use something like Sparrow or Nunchuck to do that, because the trusted third-party risk does exist on these exchanges too. Obviously, FTX, Celsius, BlockFi all proved that last year. So there's layers to this, and beyond just Bitcoin.
There's two different things, right, Marty? There's company treasury, and then there's user Bitcoin that the company's holding on behalf of their users. I think in both cases, multi-sig is particularly helpful, and organizations should consider multi-sig. But those are two different buckets of money. And if you want to take some risks with your treasury for whatever trade-off reasons you have, that's one thing. But you better safeguard that user Bitcoin, because people are trusting you to protect their money.
Yeah. Make sure there's a fine demarcation between user Bitcoin and company treasury balances. You don't want to get caught holding all of it in an omnibus account or something like that. It would not be good.
The reason I make that differentiation is because when we talk about companies, it's a more important distinction when we talk about companies on the fiat rail side, right? Because on the fiat side, if you're a company that's holding user balances in fiat, right, that is way harder to get bank accounts for than it is for something like a treasury. You're able to be a little bit more nimble with a treasury account than you are with user balances. You need a company that's willing and able to do, individual accounts, user accounts, legally in their name, that kind of thing, and it makes it a lot more difficult. So I think when people think about these things, it's important to make that distinction. But if you're like a small private business, if you're someone like Mutiny and you hold no user funds, period, it's a self-custody wallet, right? When you're thinking about banking relationships, it's a completely different situation than if it's something like Strike, where you need, fiat denominated balances for all your users, and they need to be able to buy Bitcoin and send wires in and ACH and all that good stuff. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. I mean, what we've really been expanding on is this third-party risk as it applies to Bitcoin companies specifically, but I think this extends to any type of company. And I do think Silicon Valley Bank specifically going down and having banked most of Silicon Valley companies and venture capitalist firms there was a catalyst, or at least some of the people in that subsector of the economy, to recognize the value prop of Bitcoin. I think the all-in
No, they didn't fucking learn their lesson. No one learned their lesson because they bailed out SVB. It was humanity is worse off because SVB got bailed out. No lessons were learned. There were unicorns, billion-dollar private valuation companies that had their entire treasury all user balances, their entire payroll, all their debt, everything in SVB. They had absolutely everything there, and they just would have went belly up. They would have went belly up in a week, 2 weeks. They would have been bought for pennies on the dollar, and people would have learned their lesson. Systems would have gotten more robust. Fucking USDC got bailed out in the SVB thing. The entire crypto DeFi bullshit, all that bullshit, would have exploded. It would have been an incredible, expensive learning experience for a lot of people. And that's all getting delayed now. People, as Charlie said in the comments, if there's no pain, people brain hole it so quickly. Even if there is pain, people brain hole it. But if there's no pain, no lessons are learned. The all-in guys haven't learned shit. Jason's like,
pitch crypto to me.
I honestly, it's the most bullish thing ever because we still have our edge.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that. But I do think for at least a moment, people were talking about like, oh shit, maybe this is my Bitcoin.
Yeah, there was a week there.
Yeah. And no, to that point too, I think this is actually a massive opportunity for the Bitcoin industry if you lead by example by keeping a portion of your treasury in your runway in Bitcoin custodied correctly. Like you just mentioned, that was actually fascinating. It's when any of this bank stuff pops off, the psychological aspect of it is really interesting because with SVB specifically, like there was a ton of people banking there that probably don't agree with the banking system and how it's architected. But as soon as their money was at risk, they were the first to cry on social media.
Bailout.
We need a bailout. This is going to set the US back decades if all these companies fail.
China's gonna kill us unless you bail out this bank.
Yeah. Imagine like a robust Bitcoin industry and a banking crisis re-emerges at some point in the future, probably
hasn't left.
At some point next year, becomes very apparent that it hasn't left. And Bitcoin companies are like, yeah, we may have lost some of our treasury on the bank accounts where we had small amounts of money, but we're pretty good. Sort of plant the flag there and say, yeah, we don't need your help.
I just want to say that like I was the crazy person just advising founders to just dump it all into Bitcoin while all the shit was going down. And at least so far it's aged wonderfully.
Yeah. All right. So that was like end of February, March, April when all that popped off. And it would be remiss of us around that same time as when Ordinals began to pop off as well.
Yeah, what was it? February
I think 1st officially
or 2nd was when I tweeted out mempools will never clear again, somewhere around there.
Probably. But I think the real like first emergence of like the fee spike in the mempool congestion was like early April, if I recall correctly, or maybe end of April, early May. At some point, we had the block reward equal to, or the transaction fees in the block reward equal to the subsidy for a short period of time. But that, I mean, Ordinals, I think we all have our own opinions on them, but it is pretty clear that they're it's one of the biggest themes in Bitcoin in 2023. It's interesting.
Ordinals don't exist.
Ordinals, inscription, BRC20, bucket them all.
Inscriptions exist, but you can't transfer them. They're untransferable.
Yeah. What do you think? Spam? Is it spam?
And BRC20s also exist because they're inscriptions, but they have no utility and you're just getting scammed.
I think we agree there.
But anyway, they are paying miners. They're building out our mining infrastructure faster than it would have been built out otherwise. And fortunately, I quit Twitter, so I get to ignore the majority of the infuriating aspects of it. And we do at least partially have them to thank for not having to deal with mining death spiral FUD right now, which is a plus. So we got that going for us.
Arthur Hayes was putting it out there.
What?
Did you see that?
Death spiral FUD?
Death spiral FUD driven by the BlackRock ETF. The BlackRock ETF is going to stoke up so much Bitcoin that we're going to be transacting on on-chain Bitcoin, and there's going to be no fees for miners.
Wait. Yeah, I
So
mean,
they're all-
it takes a particular level of idiocy to claim mining death spiral FUD when mempools are as busy as they are and fees are as high as they are. I mean, I saw what was the reason we made our bet for Christmas Eve is because during the holidays people transact less, right? And as a result, we did see fees come down a bit during Christmas days, but like they came down to like 70 sats per byte. There were like people bragging on Twitter like, oh, I consolidated in the low fee environment. They paid like 75 sats per byte. That's where we're at right now. And yeah, I mean, that is absolutely insane. This whole ETF FUD narrative is going to age so fucking poorly. The ETF is not a threat to Bitcoin. The ETFs are a threat to people who choose to hold the ETF IOUs and might get scammed out of the Bitcoin they think they own. You don't own Bitcoin. You own an IOU. You should learn how to hold Bitcoin yourself. But they're not a threat to Bitcoin specifically because it doesn't matter how much Bitcoin you hold. It doesn't give you more control over the network. And then second of all, there's no way that the ETF's priced in because the suits are too scared to hold their own private keys. That's why they want the ETFs in the first place. So we can sit here all day and you can go back and forth, blah, blah, blah. And maybe the week that the ETFs come out, I've been parroting this line because I'm not an ETF specialist, that it's going to be a 45-day approval window after they get approved before they get listed. I've been told by, I mean, someone sent me a tweet by, the ETF guy, Eric Balkanis or whatever, who said he thinks it would actually be listed within a few days. My point is, maybe the price spikes on listing. Maybe people think it's a sell the news event and the price goes down a little bit. But regardless, if you look at the, short, medium, long term here, like 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, the ETFs are not priced in. The suits just haven't been able to allocate yet. They can't even send emails. They're too scared to hold their own private keys. That's why they want BlackRock and Coinbase to do it for them.
Yeah.
Nobody's bullish enough. The halving's not priced in. Banking collapses aren't priced in. Mandibles isn't priced in. Hash rate isn't priced in. ETF isn't priced in.
If anything, the ETF, the biggest threat it poses, we've discussed this many times in the past few months, is a social and political attack vector where the politicians take the emergence of the ETF as an opportunity to point at it and say, hey, you can get access to Bitcoin, but it has to be through these regulated vehicles. We don't want you using quote unquote unhosted wallets or being a validator in the network or a mining operator in the network.
Not a threat to Bitcoin. It's a threat to the people who speculate on the ETFs. Just like shitcoins aren't a threat to Bitcoin. And I've been very consistent on that. They're a threat to people who speculate on them. Just like, Ordinals, BRC20s, all this bullshit, not a threat to Bitcoin. They're a threat on the people that the promoters prey on and convince them to buy their bags. Bitcoin is resilient to all of those things.
Agreed.
Bitcoin
the social political vector is a threat to American citizens.
But that's unrelated to the ETF. It doesn't. It's not. These are two separate things. This idea of at least adding friction, if not outright criminalizing freedom-focused Bitcoin usage, self-sovereign Bitcoin usage, is a theme that we have watched and was unfortunately pretty inevitable to begin with. I think the way it looks is not an outright ban. I think they just continue to add as much friction as possible. And hopefully some of these companies, we know some of these companies are fighting back behind the scenes for the first time ever. They've never fought back against KYC AML stuff. Unfortunately, most of, like Coinbase and stuff, they've spent all their lobbying and legal dollars fighting to dump securities on retail. They don't really care about freedom-focused Bitcoin usage. But at the end of the day, like if you're a Bitcoin company, and specifically if you're a Bitcoin company that wants people to use Bitcoin in a self-custody fashion, in a freedom way, it's a threat to your business, and you're going to need to fight it. All that said, these things move slowly. The Constitution is a shitcoin, but we still have a Constitution in America. I've been getting texts from people that, like the blue checks are scaring the shit out of them, telling them like people are going to like come into their house and take their ledger. That's not how this shit will play out or would play out. It's going to be more, try and catch people in lies, enforce it against people with big audiences, public people. The overwhelming majority will comply out of fear, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it was always going to be a fight. If this is a surprise to you, then maybe the move is, to sell at generational bottoms. But that's your prerogative. It's probably going to be a horrible decision.
Yeah, and it is a bit poetic how the beginning of the year and the end of the year have been juxtaposed. Like, again, like we mentioned, the banking crisis really highlighted third-party custodian risk, and as Charlie mentioned, that was brain hold pretty quickly. And then the back half of the year has been a bunch of cheerleading and
for third-party custodians offering a new suit product. But at least the suits will get mostly wrecked in that case. I mean, there's going to be fuckery. I would reiterate that if paper Bitcoin games are played, then these ETFs will suffer the same consequences that the Celsiuses and the BlockFis and the FTX of the world and the Barrys of the world faced. Which is they'll realize that Bitcoin is incredibly scarce and that there's no bailouts, and they will get wrecked. But yeah, I think, yeah. That's.
And with that in mind, I'm seeing we got 226 people listening live right now. Thank you for joining us live. Plus, that's
where the ride or dies are.
That's where the ride or dies are. Give us a like, subscribe, share it on Twitter, tell people to hop in here. We got a lot more to talk about. But like we mentioned this a few weeks ago, but I think it's worth repeating and beating the dead horse. That's my biggest worry, is that, and I think you would agree, is that the ETF and the suits come in and pump our bags to a point where the collective apathy of preserving Bitcoin's sovereign nature reaches a point where people are like, we're so rich, it doesn't matter. Like,
no, because you can't be wealthy without freedom. Because if you can't spend it without permission, you have no money. You literally just have an IOU. So it's going to take people a while to realize this, but they're intrinsically linked. If you have no freedom, you have no wealth. The incentives are beautiful in that regard. It's easy for us to make sure that this is reasonable because we've been sounding the alarm for 5-6 years now. Okay. Like, I understand that maybe some people are thinking they're coming from a good place to try and warn people before things get a little bit more draconian. But unfortunately, if you're preparing today, you might be too late already. We've been preparing for this for fucking years. Hone our skills, understand the trade-offs, understand how these systems work, get very comfortable with it, build out your threat models, think about the situation. The moment is near, and unfortunately, there are the ride or dies and they're not the ride or dies, right? And the ride or dies will fare much better in this situation.
Yeah, shout out to the ride or dies out there.
I can sleep easy at night. We've done this show for 5.5 years. Just said everything that's been on my mind. Haven't kept anything to myself. It's all out there. I can go to sleep. I'm good. I mean, this year was also a fucking massive year for OpenSats, for 1031, for Bitcoin Park, for Bitcoin Commons. Like a lot of the projects we've been working on, it's just all kind of coming together. And this shit takes time. It takes a lot of time. And you just got to keep pushing one foot in front of the other and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, the old cliche, building happens in the bear market, is very cliche, but it's also very true. It's probably been the most productive year of my professional life in the Bitcoin industry, 2023. Which, yeah, it's crazy to think we're up like 160% this year too. Sort of feels like it, but it doesn't really. It's like, we're back at 43, wherever we are right now.
The fact that so many people are bearish right now is so bullish.
Who's bearish? I don't think many people are bearish.
Dude, there are a lot of people, man.
I think we discussed this last week. I'm not seeing these people.
Yeah.
All right, what do we have? What else this year pops into your mind?
I mean, people actually think like the ETF is an attack on Bitcoin. Do you want me to name names?
Yeah, name names. But
Did you see the Max Kaiser thread that he keeps retweeting?
No.
Where he's got the cash creates completely wrong. And he's combining it with I've had multiple friends text me that thread.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a direct attack on Bitcoin, but I do think it expands the political attacks on Bitcoiners in certain jurisdictions. But no,
it's just a product for suits. There's just an additional product for suits, and yeah, I had to do not. If the threat model of Bitcoin is that there might be a custodian that becomes so large that it destroys Bitcoin, then we were fucked. It's a ridiculous premise.
Yeah.
It was literally designed to be resistant to that scenario.
And wholly expecting that scenario to materialize as well. So
yeah,
it should all be expected. I mean, we've been waiting on an ETF for literally 10 years now. I'm pretty sure the Winklevi first applied for theirs in like the beginning of 2014.
Look how far they've come. Now they're not even going to get an ETF, and they owe users $1 billion.
Hey, but they have an incredible cover band, Marsh Junction. I hear they're having a lot of success. That's a big lesson this year. About 2023 year in review. If the executives of your Bitcoin exchange start a cover band, you should probably run away. Their focus obviously isn't in the right place. Just a heuristic to go by moving forward. I think another big theme this year is AI. The emergence of consumer applications in the artificial intelligence space. I've been using them more and more. I use Midjourney, a couple other tools pretty much daily at this point. And there have been a lot of people working on products and tools to combine AI and Bitcoin, particularly via the Lightning Network, which is exciting. Obviously, we've seen the emergence of data vending machines, thanks to Pablo on Nostr. It's a really cool implementation of open source money, open source communications protocol, and AI. A bunch of other stuff going on as well.
When did ChatGPT release to the public?
I think it was November of last year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was, at least for the people that weren't paying attention, that was the start of the year of AI, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Consumer-facing products that are relatively polished.
Yeah.
And usable.
What do you think? Noise or signal or noise, the AI trend?
I think, it's difficult because I spend so much of my time focused on blocking out all the noise of blockchain and crypto and focusing on Bitcoin. And I think it's very similar in that space. I think, 98% of it is probably bullshit and hype. And then there's like 2% that's incredibly interesting and has really strong foundations. And I'm still looking for AI RHR that I can just like listen to two other people do that work for me instead of me doing it. And I haven't found it yet. But I think overwhelmingly there's real substance there. People should be paying attention to it. And, just to throw buzzwords around, like particularly Nostr, AI, Bitcoin, the three combined are super interesting to me. Now, on the privacy side, the number one thing is we don't actually need significant improvements on AI for it to be incredibly dystopian, and it is a trend that people should watch. AI is really good at combing through data sets, and governments and the corporations that work hand in hand with our governments have gotten really good at aggregating data, but not actually sorting through it. So they're collecting a shit ton of data on us. They have been for years. And now they can easily, do like a single line prompt. People who like Bitcoin, who were at this location during this period or whatever, and just like pop up all of their information, right? Just like a super easy query. So I think that is a trend that people should be aware of. And we're watching it. I mean, you can, on the Bitcoin specific side, right? Like you can put the full Bitcoin transaction history, take the whole chain, take the blockchain, throw it into one of these LLMs, and then you add it to a bunch of other data sets, right? And you can start trying to track transactions that way. That is another way that, just at the simplest core, just a way of making these large data sets incredibly useful to bad people, is something that is happening right now, and people should definitely be aware of. Yeah. There's Josh in the comments. By the way, guys, because we have no list, particularly if you're in the Nostr live stream, rhr.tv/stream, if you throw topics in there that you want us to cover real quick, we will cover those topics. We have Josh in here saying, here's my issue I have with a lot of Bitcoiners at the moment. Many are saying should have opened channels before fees spiked. He means Lightning channels. What about the plebs? First of all, I don't know if that's necessarily correct advice. I opened a lot of Lightning channels at 1 sat per byte. A lot of them have been force closed. I don't think Lightning is necessarily ready for a sustained high fee environment. I don't think it will be ready until there is a sustained high fee environment. That's the unfortunate reality with these open protocols, right? Unless there's actual real world pressure, these things don't tend to get hardened. So we're watching Lightning go through that right now. But that said, the way I look at mempools is the same way I look at Bitcoin purchasing power, it's a free market. Mempools are a free market for scarce block space, right? There's almost only so much block space on the Bitcoin blockchain where you can store this information forever, longer than we'll ever be alive, if we're correct. And it's scarce. And as a result, if demand goes up, supply stays constrained and transaction fees go up. With Bitcoin's price, also a very free market. I would say less free than mempools and the block space market, because you can participate in the block space market in a completely permissionless way with very little friction. And you can still do that in the Bitcoin market, but let's be honest, most people, when they're trading these things, are doing it through centralized platforms that are permissioned, and there's an element of control to the market, but still way more free than the traditional financial system. And why do I bring this up? I bring this up because free markets are inherently volatile short term. Why is that? That's because humans are inherently volatile short term. Humans can't even decide what they're going to have for lunch. They freak out every other day about something new. You see it all the time in Bitcoin Twitter. People wake up in the morning, they're like, what am I freaking out about today? Humans are volatile people. But long term, a scarce asset in a free market going through an adoption phase should trend up with demand, and as a result, its equivalent price, purchasing power, should trend up. So why do I say this? I say this because the most likely scenario isn't that mempools and transaction fees stay at a sustained high amount forever. When I say mempools will never clear again, I'm being intentionally provocative, because no one gave a shit about UTXO management or transaction fees unless I was intentionally provocative. But mempools will ebb and flow, but they should trend up unless we increase block size. Like, as demand increases, if supply doesn't get increased, fees are going to trend up. So hopefully, in the best case scenario, mempools will go down, pressure on mempools will go down, and people will have learned their lesson, and tools will get better, and end users will get better. And we'll have better tools that are more efficient for end users, and people will use the tools that save them money, and they will do the things that save them money. So, I mean, that is my long-winded answer to the plebs. You're not out of luck here. But these are real trade-offs that are made in this system so that we don't have centralized third parties and that we have these proper free markets. And this is what comes with it. People are just so used to their coddled, permissioned, captured markets that they can't handle a little dose of freedom. But this is what comes with freedom.
Very well put. And actually, I want to answer the next question after Josh's by Bayman 11771. We have to acknowledge there are some risk, I think, in relation to the BlackRocks and the institutions entering the space. It's not even how much they hold, it's institutions buying controlling interest of publicly traded miners. What happens then when there's pressure to introduce quote unquote governance? Things to think about. Definitely things to think about. And as somebody who sits on the board of a publicly traded miner, it's something I think a lot about.
A small one, though.
Small one. But yeah, thinking through this practically, like the attack vector. So the argument is that the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, the State Streets of the world will use the shares that they hold and basically use that as a sort of carrot. Like, hey, if you don't want me to dump these shares, here's what you have to do with your company in terms of governance, your environmental impact, and what transactions you include in your blocks and what pools you interact with. And that's certainly probably going to happen in some form or another at some point down the line. But I think publicly traded miners, I do like to think that a lot of the mining companies that are publicly traded are run by people who really understand Bitcoin and get it. I think everybody needs to grow a pair of balls and push back against this in the sense that, yes, they may have significant shares in these companies, but the executives at these miners need to get out in front of the narrative and really communicate to the market and basically scare these types of asset allocators from trying to make this move in the first place. Because if these companies do use those threats and try to force these changes on miners, number one, in the long run, they're not going to be profitable because the changes that they would enforce would ensure that miners that aren't instituting those changes are mining at a more profitable level. And then number two, you can embark in a game of chicken there, where if you're the executives at these companies, it's like, okay, you can try to force this. We're not going to do it. So if you want to kick us out, you got to go find somebody to do it. And the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, and the State Streets of the world aren't really equipped to run these mining companies. I do think there needs to be more social pressure on behalf of the industry pushing back against these activist investors as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is something we've highlighted since the Chinese mining ban, which was, by the way, was 2021. It was like 2.5 years ago. It was like spring 2021. If you look at a hash rate chart, by the way, fucking insane how little that dip was, which was really 50% of the hash rate at the time, moving to different jurisdictions. We've been highlighting since that point. I mean, there was a lot of cheering on that was going on about hash rate coming to America. And, you know, America is the land of KYC, AML, and the long arm of FinCEN and financial regulation. So it's not an ideal situation if we have a large percentage of the hash rate in America. Fortunately, we probably have around 40%. It could be a lot more, but we have about this is just out of the, you know, would be my estimation without looking at any data right now. Would be like around 45% of the hash rate is located in America. A subset of that, you know, maybe 85% of that 45% is with publicly traded miners. And then you have a bunch of pirate miners, smaller miners all around. The worst case scenario would be if governments pretended that they weren't going to do any pressure, let that hash rate get significantly high, and then all at once kind of execute some kind of censorship regime using the public miners. I just don't think they have that kind of long-term thinking. They're very high time preference people that don't really think before they act, and they just move, you know, slowly but not that deliberately. So I mean, I think miners aren't idiots. I think if you're located in a jurisdiction that isn't doing that, you will make significantly more money and the incentives work. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. but I would say I was probably more concerned about it last year than I am this year, and that is a wholly separate question besides ETFs. And I would bifurcate the two. Like BlackRock and Vanguard already own a significant portion of most of the large publicly traded miners. That's all public information. You can go look at it. They also, own a significant portion of Tesla and a significant portion of almost every major company. So that's a whole different. And but Matt, they don't own it; their shareholders own it. Yeah, I'm aware of how it works. But that's the reality we live in. Bitcoin's designed to be highly resistant to that situation.
Yeah. To the gentleman on the Zaptop stream or woman, I'm not sure, saying fuck the executive pubcos, more hash in small hands. Completely agree with the latter. We should get more hash rate in smaller hands to distribute the ownership of hash rate more granularly. And I actually think this year has been a good step in that direction. A lot of companies like CryptoCloaks creating 3D printed enclosures that make it easy for people to turn an ASIC into an at-home heating device. Obviously, we have that spa in Brooklyn that's heating their pools. Bitcoin ASICs, I think that trend will continue.
I feel like I get someone sends me that news article or a new version of that news article like once a week now. It's like, Matt, have you seen this? It's like, yeah.
Yeah. But in regards to the former part of that comment, fuck the executive pubcos, I mean, it's similar to like the ETF. The ETF's inevitable. Like, there's nothing we can do to stop it. There's nothing you can do to stop people from going public to access liquidity to expand their mining operation. It's going to happen. And so with that in mind, like with that assumption, which is a pretty good assumption, extending far into the future, that there will be publicly traded Bitcoin miners with a considerable amount of hash rate, and to accept that fact and then figure out a way to preserve the sovereignty of the network.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just shouldn't be a catch-all. Like, fuck some executive pubcos, fuck some of the executives at pubcos, but not all of them, right? Like, some of them are trying to do it in a responsible way. I mean, one trend we did see a lot that we're seeing less is that the pubcos have better access to debt markets. So they were doing a lot of their purchasing. They were on leverage. They were just financing the fuck out of it. And the smaller miners didn't have that advantage. Fortunately for us, most of them got wrecked. Interest rates went up. And most lenders will not lend against ASICs going forward. So that advantage has been cut out. Another thing we see that's really helpful for small miners is the extension of life cycles of these ASICs. These ASICs are not getting obsoleted as often. And this
no, that's 6 cents.
What was that?
S9s are profitable if you have
exactly the AK-47s of Bitcoin miners. It was like released like a decade ago. You could like drop it in mud and it'll still hash. The one of the advantages we have for us is that Bitcoin did grow up in a relative vacuum with not that much attention while we got through the bootstrap phase. Like, it was most risky at the beginning of ASICs. Like every day that goes on, it gets more robust, more resilient, and gets de-risked. And if we're not already there, we're very close to the point of no return in that regard, in my opinion.
I agree. I'm looking around for an outlet for my charger to plug it in. I'm good. I've got like 50 minutes, so I would like more time though. I think we can go on. No, I think mining and then extending beyond the trends we're seeing here in the United States, like 2023 mining, the Kingdom of Bhutan got exposed via the BlockFi and Celsius bankruptcy filings, having exposure to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and they had to come out and admit that they've been mining Bitcoin. And they actually use that as an opportunity to double down and say, yeah, we're mining Bitcoin and we're actually going to expand by 500 megawatts. Kingdom of Oman invested $1.1 billion in a private miner in Oman. It's very clear that Russia's mining Bitcoin. They announced a partnership between Gazprom and BitRiver earlier this year, and I think we've discussed this on the show a few times throughout the year, but if you talk to some of the ASIC manufacturers, like they'll just openly tell you they're selling a lot of ASICs in Russia. Who else? Africa, we had let's pop up, like much smaller scale, but
2024 might be the year that the Saudis come out after the fact and say they've accumulated a large position.
Would not be surprised.
Dude, the Gulf states, it makes so much sense for those energy rich Gulf states.
Yeah. I mean, if you talk to Bitcoin, there's a lot of Bitcoiners doing a lot of business in the UAE and Dubai. And you have to imagine there's going to be one of those ninja announcements where it's like, yeah, we've been in this for years. So that was a big theme. New mining pools more recently, Ocean Pool, Demand Pool. They've come to market. Anything else in mining we should talk about?
Brain switched out their payout scheme.
They went to PPLNS. So you get paid out an equal share commensurate with your hash rate every day. I had one other thing I want to mention. Oh, Bitmain announced the S21 series which will begin shipping next month.
Intel lost their cool and cut their ASIC division during the bear. That was a big one.
Yeah.
We're going to have to wait another couple of years if we want the US backdoored ASICs instead of the Chinese backdoored ASICs.
Hey, they're Taiwanese.
Right.
And Korean.
Depending who you ask, Taiwan might not exist.
Yeah. What else? What else should we cover? Geopolitics? You want to jump into geopolitics here?
Not really.
Neither do I.
Freaks, drop things in the comments. What else? I saw a trend this year where like people are finally waking up to Ledger's bullshit and are moving to better signing devices. Ledger wallet has had multiple privacy issues throughout this year. They had that one wallet draining issue with the Ethereum DApp. I don't think that was specifically isolated to them. It was most Ethereum wallets were compromised by that. But people are finally starting to take it more seriously. I think it was the year of self-custody in general. I think a lot of people took self-custody themselves for the first time ever, including some Bitcoin influencers that had never held their keys before. I think those are two big trends.
Yeah, definitely. Finding out that Ledger is not the best hardware wallet to keep your Bitcoin in. And again, this highlights why it's important to really choose your counterparties when you're securing your Bitcoin wisely. A company like Ledger and Trezor, to a certain extent, they really spread themselves thin by accommodating as many cryptocurrencies as possible to sell to as many people as possible. And the Ledger data hack, I mean, that was just poor CRM management on their part. But the wallet draining attack that materialized a few weeks ago, I mean, that was just lazy code. They were just taking JavaScript packets and not checking them.
They also just have like a shit ton of trackers in Ledger Live that they force you to use if you want to use the device. Yeah, if you're still using Ledger at this point, I don't know what to tell you. Use something better. I mean, another big one was Nostr. Nostr absolutely massive growth this year. Nostr is incredibly young. I mean, we barely have, polished Nostr apps today. And it has grown tremendously over this last year. Ton of developer interest, massive amount of developer interest. Really cool tools being built out. Strong community there already and growing. So I would not sleep on Nostr. If you haven't used it yet, the Primal client is very user-friendly, primal.net. You can download it on the app stores if you want to use it on your phone. Damus is great. It's on iOS. Amethyst is great. It's on Android. But I really like Primal. Very user friendly. But yeah, watching the Nostr space. I mean, look at things like Mutiny Wallet, where they're like building out essentially like a freedom version of Venmo. They don't need a Twitter API key. They don't need permission from Twitter because they use Nostr, and they don't need permission from PayPal or Swift because they use Bitcoin, and they're able to just make a freedom version of Venmo without asking permission, all accessible in your browser. Didn't exist this time last year.
No. I mean, our Zap.stream live stream chat didn't exist last year.
Yeah, shout out Kieran. Snort. Yeah, I should shout out his client too, snort.social. Another great client. There's a lot of there's so many projects on Nostr that's hard to keep track. We talked about a project last week, Flare, which, by the way, Marty, I dismissed because I said video storage is hard and difficult. What I realized he's doing is it's like a Nostr integrated directory of videos hosted elsewhere. Like you can upload your video directly to his servers if it's smaller than 100 megs, but the primary use of it is like you link to a YouTube video or you link to a video hosted on another site, but it's all aggregated on that website, and then you can zap to it or whatever in a really nice polished way, which is a really cool trade-off balance. It's a cool concept. I mean, the thing loaded super quickly. I was impressed by that. That's a cool idea. But yeah, more and more every day. What?
You just let YouTube do all the hosting, and you embed the video on the page, and that's hooked up to your NPub, and you can zap.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit, that might be short-sighted. You're just going to get rugged by YouTube eventually, probably.
How?
Well, YouTube will just rug you the way YouTube always rugs people, which is like if you have a big enough audience and then you say something they don't want you to say, they just delete your account. So then you lose all the history that you had on Flare too, because the video is hosted there, and you'd have to re-upload the video at that time. But yeah, it's a very pragmatic way of handling it. He's saying, I don't need to be the video host. I'm the video directory mostly, but like also you can host small videos with me. And maybe he turns that into a paid service where if you want to host a bigger video, you pay him in sats ahead of time or something like that.
Yeah, but without even going to that adversarial extreme, I think for like people like BTC Sessions, like this
is not an adversarial extreme.
I mean,
BTC Sessions had his account suspended at one point and had to bring it back.
For what?
Marty, are you really, after this year and last year and the year before that, you're going to tell me that you have faith in the YouTube censorship regime and that they're not going to just like randomly just cut off people's access?
What I'm trying to get at is there's plenty of YouTube content creators out there that make content that's benign. So benign.
Wow. You're just using the censorship regime's own vocabulary. What is benign content, Marty?
Doing like Miss Rachel doing speech therapy for babies. Like if she could put this on Flare, monetize directly via Bitcoin, they're never gonna demonetize Miss Rachel.
Poor Miss Rachel. She just got hit with the Marty jinx. Well, she had a good run. She was collateral damage. She had no idea it was coming to her, and just Marty had to say it. So it's gonna be this is the year. Maybe this is the year Miss Rachel learns about trusted third parties being security holes.
She has to be making like millions of dollars a month
with permission.
With permission, yes. She can make more money without permission by just putting
probably not
on Flare.
Oh yeah, I mean, in addition, if it's net new.
Yeah. All the haters in the comments, I'm just trying to say there's a way where people can put additional monetization with Bitcoin via Flare.
Well, I mean, let's call out one of the haters. I think Philip Rizzo, his comment, all those seed oils went straight to Marty's head was particularly mean. I think this was the year that Philip Rizzo became a freak.
Number one, Philip, fuck you. We've been cutting seed oils out aggressively in my household. That is the one thing I have to figure out if we move back to Philly. The food here is just like tastes good, but it's terrible for you.
Yeah, I think the incentives, I don't know, but it seems like we're trending in the right direction, that people see they can make money on like actually providing healthy food.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just didn't know the dangers of vegetable oil and seed oil, that it was a low cost engine lubricant, before they psyoped us into putting it into everything. And now people are starting to wake up, right? You start to see it in like Whole Foods and stuff. That's like usually the first line of the new trend. Yeah.
Shout out to Max DeMarco, big Nostr user. He made a seed oils mini doc a few weeks ago. It was really good. You guys should go check that out. Yeah,
he makes great content. He was the producer for Freedom Money, the Freedom Money series I did. I love that guy. And he's fully like on board with this value for value content creation. So definitely go support his work, because he doesn't want to sell it to sponsors. He wants to do it the right way.
Yeah. All right. What else do we got? 2023. Argentina, Javier Milei.
I might be wrong on him. We'll see. I'm going to go into 2024 cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic. I mean, he is gutting the government.
Remove the legal tender laws.
Yeah. It's a good step. It was funny that tweet thread that went out by the Minister of Finance or whatever. She like put in the first tweet like Bitcoin is now legal tender, and then the second tweet you could also use like milk or livestock or whatever.
Anything you want. Yeah. There is no legal tender. People don't realize like legal tender itself is very stated. It's like it's telling you specifically what money you can use and what money you can't use. So really what we want to see is proper free markets where people can choose which money they want to use. Whether that be cows or Bitcoin or Solana, or gold, and the best money will win, and the best money is Bitcoin. So
I mean that's the Austrian view, is have this free market for monetary goods, let them compete. And our thesis is Bitcoiners. Bitcoin's the best money that we've ever come into contact with. So naturally the market will converge on Bitcoin. People aren't going to be using milk to go buy bleach at the corner store. They'll be using Bitcoin.
I will say if Milei like keeps it up and like actually follows through with a lot of this shit, like a rising Argentina on the back of this shit is going to create a very interesting geopolitical environment in this hemisphere.
Dude, I was thinking about this week. We got to take like a 1031 trip down there, because if the market really does open up, people talk about investing in emerging markets or the global south, if you will. But Argentina, it's funny. The global south, very racist term in my view. Sort of buckets everybody below a certain point on the earth and throws them all together. But Argentina historically has been an economic powerhouse. I think a century ago they were the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world. Unfortunately for them, they had spent the better half of the last century a somewhat communist and socialist state. But
they went through mandibles like 4 times.
Yeah. But the bones are good. The structure is good of Argentina. Despite going through mandibles 4 times, they had a pretty cohesive social environment.
The people are hardened. They've been through shit for generations, you know?
Yeah.
They're survivors.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Politicians aren't going to save us, though. Got to save ourselves.
It's true. Speaking of that, should we transition to 2024 predictions? Resolutions, goals?
Yeah, sure. What do you got for us? Bonus points if it's bettable.
No, I don't got any predictions. Number go up.
What do you think the hash rate's going to be? We went from 275 to 500.
I don't know, dude. With these S21s, if Bitmain can really produce 50,000 to 100,000 of those things a month, it could go up. I think we can get above the same hash point. Like,
one of the best.
And if numbers going up and hash price is going up, and despite the halving, older miners are still profitable, like things can get weird from a hash rate perspective.
So was that an answer?
No, I think it'll go up significantly. Wouldn't be surprised if we hit a Zeta hash. Not saying we will.
Is Zeta after Exa?
Yeah.
I learn all this as the hash rate increases.
Yeah.
So you think 1,000 exahash is a Zeta hash, right? I mean, that is a fact.
We're almost at 600 right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think so do we double in a halving year? Is like, that's pretty crazy. You'd think it would at least slow down in a halving year.
That's the thing with like the efficiency of these new machines that are coming to market. And again, there's a caveat to this. If Bitcoin can actually, it's not Bitcoin, if Bitmain can produce the amount of machines they're marketing and they're selling them at $14 a terahash, or at least that's what they came out of the gate at, like they're relatively cheap. I could certainly see it if they can keep their production numbers up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go over on that.
Yeah,
I think that's like it's a pretty healthy line. You're not going to bet me?
No, because I think we'll go over too. But
okay. Do you remember? I was looking back. By the way, I hope this is the year that has proven to anyone paying attention that stable coins on Bitcoin or Lightning make zero fucking sense whatsoever. Because if you're going to use a centralized stablecoin, you might as well use it on something that doesn't take necessary trade-offs to maintain censorship resistance, because you're trusting a centralized third party anyway. But I was looking back at our BitBlock boom from 18 months ago, because that was when Tapass got announced, and we had a whole back and forth. Ryan Gentry was on there with us, and I was like, it makes no fucking sense. And he very clearly, and I have a ton of respect for Ryan. He's a good friend. He was clearly expecting a low fee environment to last for a long, long time. Like, just completely directionally incorrect, I think. Not to dunk on someone.
Ouch.
But one of the things we were arguing about was total Bitcoin energy usage. And I think you said 1% or 2% or something at hyper Bitcoinization.
Oh yeah, we had a line. It was like, at hyper Bitcoinization, will the Bitcoin network consume closer to 50% of the world's energy, or 1%?
Closer to 1%. And you were closer to 1%. Grant, one of our managing partners at 1031, was the great mediator who came in at 26%. So he was like, I'm closer to 50.
Well, the thing, for some of the mining companies I'm involved with, like, we've been speccing out like what a build out for these S21s would be specifically, and like the amount of hash rate you can get out of a megawatt of energy is astonishing. Like one container of these S21s can consume 1 megawatt of energy. So in that term, we're becoming extremely efficient. So you don't need as many ASICs to consume. I'm trying to like.
So do you still think it's going to be like 1% of global energy usage?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's like closer to 10, but I don't think it's
We're
gonna
at
be close.
like 0.3% or something right now.
I think like 0.5.
Okay, 0.5%. We're at 0.5%. At the time of the conversation, we were at 0.2%, 0.3%.
We're up 2.5x now, or 1.5x.
We're 1.5x on
Global
we're-
energy.
Right. But it's important that hash rate doesn't necessarily mean energy usage because we have more efficient miners.
Yeah.
So it's not a 1-to-1 on hash rate growth there.
No.
Carlos is saying in the chat that I said around 10%.
Wow.
I think it's going to be a significant number.
Look at this prediction in the Zap.stream chat from Reebs. I'm hashing in Iraq for less than 2 cents a kilowatt hour. The Middle East will be the hashing center of the world after a couple more epochs. That wouldn't shock me at all. Shout out to you, Reebs.
I just what would shock me if there is a mining center of the world in 2 or 3 epochs, because what I think people fail to realize is once we start hitting these types of scale, like, first of all, the number one, miners have to deal with a bunch of different variables, right? But ultimately, what are they trying to do? They're trying to keep their costs as low as possible while still operating in a stable environment, right? It doesn't really help you. You can get negative 2 cents a kilowatt hour and be in a jurisdiction that pays you, and then all of a sudden, like, the authoritarian just comes in, knocks on your door, steals all your money, like steals your cows and your goats and shoots your dog. And did it really help you, right? So you need to be in a relatively stable environment, and you have to have the lowest energy cost possible. And what happens is there's just not that much of that in a single place. So I think it just naturally distributes itself as miners look for low costs and stable, relatively stable. I mean, they can still be corrupt governments, right? As long as you're paying them off and you're part of that payroll scheme, like relatively stable situations.
Yeah. No, that makes logical sense to me too. I mean, we'll see. We're already seeing it here in the United States. Like, between this, New York is not a stable place to mine. Texas is.
Carlos is saying to me, "Why are they shooting the dogs? The authoritarians always shoot your dog. Like, just keep that in mind. Like, if you're talking about like government coming in to ban Bitcoin, just keep in mind you're also including them shooting your dog as they come onto your property, because they always do that. They're like, oh, the dog attacked me, and they just immediately shoot the dog. It's fucked up shit."
Reebs, I love having an Iraqi freak in the chat. What is a wasta? I need to look up a wasta. In fact, but in the Middle East, we have something called a wasta.
Well, it's really interesting because this was the year too where we saw companies like Riot prove out that certain jurisdictions will give you above and beyond. If you ask their permission, they'll give you above and beyond power deals that don't exist to the average person in terms of their power curtailment agreements, where they are essentially net providing them like negative electricity costs to have significant mining operations in the state of Texas.
Yeah. And so this is actually interesting. The awasta in the Middle East is an Arabic word that loosely translates into nepotism, clout, or who you know. And that's actually, it's been confirmed already with China. There's still 20% of the hash rate in China. And if you understand what's going on there, it's basically people that have been blessed by the CCP to be allowed to keep mining.
That's another thing. Yeah, I mean, that's true. We see a lot of similar stuff throughout the world, in like South America and Africa. Just, I mean, corruption, right? It's like a nice word for corruption, I guess. Like informal, formal corruption, where it's just the cost of doing business, right? Where like a Walmart will go into a country, and even a S&P 500 company is doing like cash deals behind the scenes because they need their Walmart open. Yeah, I mean, that is obviously going to be factored into any miner's decision, but still, regardless, I think if in terms of a stable environment for you, however that looks, plus low energy costs, there's only a finite amount in any given area. It's one of the reasons why it's so important that Bitcoin has proof of work, and that it's tied to the energy infrastructure.
Yeah. Well, like an important caveat to that, or nuance variable, there's only cheap energy in a particular area at any given point in time, because that can shift over time, especially if you have new energy generation and capacity build out that lowers the price. Like what was previously expensive can become inexpensive. The miners can come in, it becomes more expensive maybe over time, and somebody pops up somewhere else.
Market dynamics.
Like the Bitcoin mining hash rate market is just going to be like a flow of water, like a tide coming in and out across the world as people chase that cheap energy.
Yeah, and like nimble miners will get rewarded, but also like there are different strategies depending on what your miner. I see Carlos mention Core Scientific going bankrupt. Like that's another advantage that pubcos have, is that they just can go bankrupt, restructure, leverage the public debt markets, bankrupt, restructure, never turn off their miners, and then continue hashing, which is not, something that's natively part of the, the main part of the Bitcoin incentive scheme is like, if you're an unprofitable miner, you'll just go out of business and the profitable miners will continue. And it kind of sucks for, miners that don't have those advantages to them and they have to compete against it, but it is what it is. It's a free market. So
yeah. I think mining might be the most fascinating aspect of Bitcoin in my mind. It's just like always something.
I would say maybe 2024 is the year that the majority of this industry realizes that mining is not the problem. It's the solution. It's not the problem that needs to be solved. It's the solution to everything. Or not to everything. I'm speaking in absolutes, but it's a core aspect of the innovation that is Bitcoin. Without it, Bitcoin could not exist and would not exist. And it's beautiful in its own right. But probably not. 2024 probably won't be that year. It'll probably be the year that BlackRock fully captures Ethereum. That'll be the year when people start to figure it out. And then that might still be years off.
Is Ethereum even worth co-opting at this point?
I don't know. This was the year, which, by the way, to those new here, Bitcoiners did not create the term Bitcoin maximalism. I have never called myself a Bitcoin maximalist. It was used as a slur by Vitalik, Archbishop of the Ethereum pre-mine, to denigrate us, to say that all of our complaints about Ethereum were just because it was not Bitcoin. And it was a straw man argument against us. But this is the year that the Ethereum maximalist was born, particularly against like Solana and Avalanche and Polygon and all these like ETH killers. And now they get a little taste of their own medicine, which has kind of been nice.
Yeah, what's it called? An Aro barrel, where you just like eat your tail, and destroy yourself. Yeah. No, I mean, this is, I think, especially in the early days of Rabbit Hole Recap, we were calling out pretty aggressively. I mean, you have that infamous thread on Twitter explaining how the transition to proof of stake would essentially enable Ethereum to become co-opted rather trivially. That seems to be happening if you look at the state of their validators. And then that's the other thing too. Ethereum is trying to be everything all at once with their transition to proof of stake, their manipulation of the monetary policy to ultrasound money, trying to do everything from the scripting capability on the chain. It's just not going to work. You're competing with Bitcoin and then other networks like Solana and Avalanche. Bitcoin does money way better. It's not even comparable. And then all the other centralized shitcoins do all the scripting stuff way better because they just eat the trade-offs on the front end. They're like, yeah, we're pretty centralized. And at the end of the day, degens don't really care about decentralization. So if you make it easier and cheaper to gamble, people are going to go use that. So Ethereum, the perpetual LARP. I think this is the year. I mean, this could be a bottom signal. Who knows? I think a lot of the air has been taken out of the Ethereum balloon this year, particularly.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like degens can degen, longer than we can make predictions. So I don't expect rational markets yet. Maybe we'll have them in the. I think after Bitcoin standard markets become way more rational.
Do we transition to an efficient market? Is it
Yeah,
rational?
I don't think it's like.
The efficient
I don't
market
think
theory.
it's not like black and white. It's not just like one day we wake up and like markets are efficient, but I think they become more efficient if they're actually if they're more free and they lack, they require less permission. They should be more efficient. Like in a proper free market, there's no such thing as insider trading. There's just things getting priced in. But that's how markets work. And anyone who think like, forget Bitcoin for a second. Like traditional markets are very far from efficient right now. Like the efficient market hypothesis junkies, like they for like 2020, like they got absolutely wrecked. It like took 4 months for them to price in lockdowns. And then all of a sudden on one day, March 12th, 2020, like shit hit the fan and things started going down and they pulled all the circuit breakers and they tried to close markets and they tried to do this and they tried to do that. And that's how it happened, right? So we'll see. I expect them to get more efficient. I think part of it is participants, right? And it's like, okay, you can't expect global markets. You can't expect markets to be efficient if you don't have a global market of participants in that market that understand all the different nuances and are trading them, right? And I think a perfect example right now is the ETF, which is the suits can't price in shit because they're waiting for the ETF. That's the reason the ETFs are going to have demand in the first place. And I think if you look at stuff like the halving or hash rate, it's just like there's not that many people that understand these concepts yet. So like, how could they be priced in? There's just not that many people that hold self custody of their Bitcoin. I don't know what the number is, but it's way, 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 way less. And we don't know the number by design, which is good, but it's way, way, way less than, Sailors quoted 100 million, 150 million Bitcoin users. It's probably closer to the 10 million number. Well, we have, 8 billion, maybe 8 billion change people on this planet. Maybe we're close to 9 billion now because people just keep making babies, which is beautiful.
People are not making babies anymore. It's going to start going down in like 20 years.
People are not making babies anymore?
Not at the replacement rate, no.
Okay, well, you want to make a bet on that? How do you want to bet on global population numbers? Is that like is that kosher? Okay, but my point is like you just do the math, right? 10 million.
Worldwide fertility has fallen from an average of 5 births per woman in 1950 to 2.3 births per woman. So the replacement rate's 2.1. So we're almost under the replacement rate.
But we're still trending up.
No, we're trending down.
Would you my favorite new conspiracy theory is that Taylor Swift is going to marry Travis Kelce. They're going to have 7 children. She's going to become a trad wife influencer, and she's going to lead the next great century of American greatness off the back of a huge population growth count. It's like fucking fantastic shit post.
I did see that shit post.
It's so good. I was like, you just won the internet. I was like, nailed it. Anyway, 10 million divided by 9 billion, right? If we're at like, so where am I getting my
billion? We're at 8 billion.
What?
We're at 8.
Okay. 10 million divided by 8 billion. Like no one is holding and using Bitcoin. Like if you don't hold Bitcoin, you don't have any Bitcoin. There's a negligible amount of people. It's impossible for the market to be efficient yet. You just don't have enough market participants for it to be. So that will take time with adoption. Was the point I was trying to make. But I'm bullish on population growth. I don't think.
I am eventually. I mean, the trend is not good right now, and I think it's because of fiat money and the fact that Malthusians are in control. I do think we will reverse the trend, but as it stands right now, the birth rate is falling pretty aggressively around the world. That's why we need a Bitcoin standard. Make people economically and financially comfortable enough to be confident to bring children into the world.
By the way, we know the lower bound of self-custody Bitcoin users is 1 million because Ledger leaked 1 million customers in their database.
Well, it could be shitcoiners, pure shitcoiners. I'd imagine at least 300,000 of them are pure shitcoiners.
That own no Bitcoin?
I mean, they know Bitcoin. That hold no Bitcoin, yes.
Wow. Couldn't be me.
Since I short-circuited the outlet down here, my laptop has not been charging. I just got the 10% battery warning.
Do you not have another outlet near you?
Not within.
We can wrap anyway. You're with family.
Wrap. We've got 10%.
Yeah, but that last 10%, dude, that last 10% goes by so quickly.
The point I was making, I wanted to at least get the shout-outs from last week out before.
Okay, let's get the shout-outs.
Rabbit Hole Recap 284, Merry Christmas. Top 4 shout-outs from last week. Svenjol boosted 55,555 sats. 5s across the board, palindrome boost. Thanks for providing strong signal week after week the whole year through. Look forward to 2024 with you. It will be amazing. It will be amazing, Svenjol. Thank you. At Gert, boosted 50,005 sats. Palindrome boost. Shout out to the bottle of Lagavulin behind Marty. It's my favorite. Love to you guys, your families, and all the freaks. Merry Christmas. It's funny, Gert.
Appreciate you, freaks. Appreciate Marty trying to pronounce Lagavulin.
Lagavulin. I showed my father-in-law this boost, and he was very, very thankful that he appreciated that you appreciated the Lagavulin.
Yeah, I think we're both pronouncing it wrong. There's this guy on YouTube that does, in Marty's words, relatively benign videos where he just pronounces scotches, and I get most of them wrong.
Lefroy we got wrong for a while there.
During my 2 years of bottle pops on the show, I pronounced many a scotch wrong. And guess what? I haven't learned. I still pronounce them wrong.
I'm probably pronouncing Lagavulin wrong. At Eric99, 50,000 sats. Stay humble, stack sats. Thank you, Eric.
Great advice.
Thank you for your support all year. At Cumrocket. 42,069 sats. Nice. Missoula Bitcoin meetup, Wednesday, January 10, 2024, from 7 to 9 p.m. at Iron Horse Bar and Grill at 510 North Higgins Ave in Missoula, Montana. Whether you're a seasoned holder, a pleb miner, a curious beginner, or somewhere in between, this meetup provides the perfect opportunity to connect with fellow Bitcoin enthusiasts in our community who share a deep passion for embracing the decentralized future. All ages allowed and families encouraged. Skeptics also welcome. The second Wednesday of each month, also on OPA. Peace and love. Top 4 shout-outs from last week.
Appreciate you, freaks.
Wow, what a year. Every week. We didn't miss a week this year.
We've literally only missed a week once in our entire existence.
And this week, like 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
It was the first year. It was never again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was because we did have like a Christmas rip, but it was like Christmas, then New Year's. Like you didn't need both. And then we skipped it and felt shame. We brought shame on our families, and we haven't skipped it since.
Yeah. At least 4 years. No, 5 years now. Beginning of 2019, beginning of 2024, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. 5 years every week, sometimes twice a week. We've been doing it. It's Thursday, December 28th. Start the new year on a Monday next week. Hope everybody out there, wherever you're listening, whether it's New York or Iraq, you enjoy the last few days of this year. Spend it with family, reflect, prepare. It's going to be a fun 2024. I'm excited. It's going to be crazy. We got a presidential election year here in the U.S. The bank runs will probably continue. We got a Bitcoin halving, an imminent ETF approval. Things are going to get weird in a good way. When things get weird, how's that one go? When things get weird, the strange turn pro. When
Never
things get
heard that one.
when things get crazy, the weird turn pro. Somebody knows that.
We
Logan?
got we got to look up quotes before we try and say them on air. I mean, we're both guilty of this one. I have Bitstep in the comments asking, Matt, what champagne were you drinking in 2017? Dude, December 2017, January 2018, every type, all the types. It's just 2 months of champagne. Good times.
When shit gets weird, the weird pro. I think that's what it is.
I thought hyper Bitcoinization was upon us.
We all did. We were young. We're brash. Jerry McDonald, obsessed with this Irish mist bottle. I don't know how long he's had this. There's no year on it.
Yeah, no, 2024 is going to be insane. No one's ready. We just try our best. We're going to actually be starting the year off with a bang with the mining summit, our second annual mining summit at Bitcoin Park, January 18th and 19th. This is one of our few ticketed events. High signal, less than 200 people. Food and drink is included. You can find more information at bitcoinpark.com/mining. But consider joining us. There's a couple spots left. I think there's like 10, 20 tickets left.
I will be there. First Nashville trip of the year. I'm sure there will be many.
Yeah, we'll do a live audience RHR while you're here.
Yeah. Resolutions, personal resolution. I want to get this on the record because I want to hold myself to it. I actually began trying to apply this at home about a month ago. Haven't been perfect. My goal as a father in 2024 is to be the first up in the house and like up and out of bed. When the boys get out of bed, I'm up like making breakfast or working. And they're not like running into my room and waking me up.
Well, I like that one.
Yeah.
Your oldest is going to be the biggest issue with that one, right?
Yeah. No, my youngest. My oldest is already like in that early teenage phase where he sleeps in. You have to wake him up like 10 minutes before school. Like, come on.
It starts that young?
For my oldest, it has, yeah.
Wow. Okay, without doxing his age. Not a teenager. Okay. Yeah, New Year's resolutions. I'm gonna still not use Twitter.
Come on, that's an easy one. You haven't been using it for
fuck
like 6
you,
months.
dude. Don't tell me it's an easy one until you stop using Twitter.
I don't want to stop using Twitter. I want to keep using it to leverage.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an easy one. It's a day by day thing. You think I don't want to dunk on the suits and the shitcoiners and all those people? It's gonna be wild.
Are you like Ben Stiller in the Dodgeball movie where you're like slapping the donut out of your hand with your cell phone?
If you could dodge Twitter, you can dodge a ball. I just don't want to be the product. This year is going to be the year where I try my best not to be the product across my entire life. I did a pretty good job last year of trying to focus on family more. I'm going to continue that trend. Less work travel across the board.
I would love that as well. We may not
too many conferences though. Like I think safely cut out pretty much all conferences.
Yeah, and
And
more
have-
productive work travel is the resolution.
Yeah, like you flying for like 3 days real quick and do like something high signal and small and off the record is way, 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 way more valuable than going to one of these, ridiculous, massive events where you get nothing done. You get absolutely nothing done. And then what? You just like go up on stage and you're like, Bitcoin's gonna moon. Bitcoin is freedom. This is like the same shit over and over again. They don't have any interesting conversations.
Yeah. It's funny, NPub 1ZT8U9MZ saying 5% battery warning. I just got it. Can you guys see that? You can't see that, can you?
What?
My 5% battery warning.
No, I think he's just guessing. Do you feel like he's in your computer? Maybe you've been hacked.
Apple with all these backdoors, these 0 days.
We're just gonna go until your computer dies, right?
Yeah, I'm at 4%.
And then I get to hit them with final thoughts, and then Logan ends it.
I don't know if I like that. Maybe we should. I don't know.
That was my plan. I thought you'd be cut off by now.
What was the one episode where I dropped off and you went on for like an hour? Or it might have been vice versa. I invited like MVK and we ran the show for like an hour after you left.
It was like having or something.
Oh,
Pablo, what's the Madeira show? Yeah, I see you in the comments. One conference that will be a great conference and nobody should miss is Bitcoin Atlantis, which is happening in Madeira, I believe in March. And hopefully you can go to bitcoinatlantis.com because Pablo hasn't told me the website to show. But yeah, that'll be good. I'm like 50-50 if I'm going to go to that or not. Yeah, Bitcoin Atlantis, March 1st through 3rd. Because I mean, I want to visit Madeira. We have good Bitcoiners in Madeira. I just might not do it during the conference week. That's my argument. It's like, just bring the fam, come for a month or something. And I'll just do RHR from Madeira for a month. Be fantastic. Yeah, bitcoinatlantis.com, great domain. And also Pablo and Gigi are doing the world's best Bitcoin accelerator program that starts next month in Madeira. And
wait. I see Madeira for the win. I know the Mutiny guys are going to stay there for like a month to start next year, but you better get your ass back to Austin after that month.
Wait. I don't know if that was public information, but now it is. But you just first you shoe Ben and then you do that. But they're going to have some of the best in Madeira hacking on Bitcoin and Nostr and other freedom projects. And you know it's the real deal because it's probably the only accelerator in the world that I've ever heard of that does not come with any investment or any kind of money. People are just doing it because Gigi and Pablo are fucking awesome. So they're just going out to spend time with Gigi and Pablo. And I don't think people can really comprehend what comes out of a couple months of heavy hitters all working together in the same room. That's where real change happens. So I'm particularly excited about that.
We see it in the comments every week. I've got 1%. I do want to say resolution, something to hold.
Wait, you got 1% of what? Oh, battery. I thought you were trying to take equity in businesses here. I was like, fuck you, Marty. You don't just like get to say you get 1%. Anyway, go on. Did we lose him? We lost him. King of the castle. Logan, you want to join me? Do you have a camera? He was going to say his last comment, and then I filibustered him. Well, anyway, freaks, it's been a hell of a year. Marty was wrong about mempools. Hash rate's ripping. ETFs not priced in. Halving's not priced in. Bankrun's not priced in. Mandible's not priced in. Love your family. Prepare for the worst. Hope for the best. Treat your neighbor with love. Stay humble, stack sats.
Persian love freaks.